Elena's hands trembled as she opened the Facebook message from a name she hadn't seen in 50 years. "I never stopped looking for you," it read. Diana, her Diana, the woman she'd kissed under the Barcelona stars in 1973 before Franco's police tore them apart. 50 years of marriages, children, continents between them, and a lifetime of wondering what if. Now, at 68 and 72, they had one last chance. But could love really survive half a century of silence, loss, and the weight of lives fully lived? Elena had been scrolling through Facebook mindlessly, her nightly ritual since retiring from her nursing career, when the message appeared. The profile picture was small, but she'd have recognized those eyes anywhere. Warm brown, with that distinctive amber ring around the pupils. Diana Moretti. Her heart stopped, literally stopped for what felt like full seconds, before hammering back to life with such force she pressed her hand to her chest. She was alone in her San Diego apartment. Her ex-husband Paul, 3,000 miles away in Boston. Her 2 adult daughters busy with their own lives. Alone with a ghost that had just become real. The message was simple. Elena Vasquez from Barcelona, I've been searching for you for years. I don't know if you remember me, but I could never forget you. Please, if this is you, write back. Diana Moretti, Diana Romano. Back then, remember her? Elena had spent 50 years trying to forget her, and failing every single day. Barcelona, 1973. Elena was 18, fresh from her small Catalonian village, working as a chambermaid in a hotel where Diana, a 22-year-old American studying art history, was staying. They'd met when Diana spoke to her in broken Spanish, asking about the best places to see Gaudi's work. Elena, eager to practice her English, and desperate to escape her conservative family's watchful eye, had offered to show her. What started as a tour became daily meetings, then weekly secret rendezvous, then stolen kisses in shadowed alleys, then everything a love so consuming it felt like drowning and flying simultaneously. They'd made plans. Diana would finish her studies, Elena would save money. They'd meet in Paris, where nobody knew them, where women like them could exist. But Franco's Spain was brutal. Someone had seen them kissing near Park Güell. The police came to Elena's family home. Her father's face when they told him, she still saw it in nightmares. The shame, the fury. Within a week, she was married to her second cousin Miguel, a man 30 years her senior, who needed a wife after his first died in childbirth. Diana, warned by Elena's desperate note, had fled Spain days before the police came looking for her. Elena had tried to find her once, after Miguel died 15 years later, but Diana Romano was too common a name, and the internet was still in its infancy. Eventually, Elena had remarried Paul, a kind American military doctor she'd met at the hospital. They'd had a good marriage, 2 daughters, a comfortable life. She'd buried Barcelona so deep she sometimes convinced herself it had been a dream. Now, staring at Diana's message, her hands shaking so badly she could barely type, Elena wrote back, I never forgot, not a single day. Is it really you? The response came within minutes. It's really me. Can I call you? Elena typed her phone number, then sat in the dark living room, waiting. When it rang, she let it go 3 times before answering. Needing those seconds to breathe, to prepare for a voice she'd thought lost forever. Elena, that voice, deeper now, aged by time and American decades, but still Diana, still the woman who'd whispered promises in broken Spanish English while they hid in the shadow of La Sagrada Familia. Diana, Elena whispered, and started crying. Where have you been? They talked for 6 hours straight. Diana in Portland, Oregon, where rain drummed against her windows. Elena in San Diego, watching the night slowly give way to dawn. Diana had searched for her for decades. She'd returned to Barcelona in 1985, bribing hotel staff, checking old records, visiting Elena's family neighborhood only to find them gone. No trace, no trail. Elena had disappeared as completely as if she'd never existed. Diana had eventually married to a woman named Grace in 2004, after finally accepting who she was. Grace had died of breast cancer 5 years ago. No children, just a quiet life teaching art history at Portland State University, painting on weekends, and never quite letting go of the girl who'd shown her the real Barcelona. Elena told her story in fragments: Miguel's cruelty disguised as traditional values, the relief when he died, meeting Paul who was gentle but never quite understood the sadness she carried, the divorce 3 years ago when the girls were grown and pretending became unbearable. She told Diana about the nights she'd dream in Spanish, wake crying, Paul asking what was wrong, and her lying, just missing my mother, when the truth was she was missing Diana, missing the person she'd been allowed to be for 4 perfect months in 1973. I painted you, Diana said, around 3 a.m. For 40 years. I painted the same scene over and over, a young woman in a yellow dress standing in front of Casablanca. I could never get the light right, never capture how you looked that day. I was wearing your bracelet, Alina whispered, the silver one you bought from that vendor in Los Ramblas. Silence. Then, you remember. Diana, I remember everything. The taste of the horchata we drank in Plaza Real, the way you held my hand under the table at that cafe where the waiter pretended not to see, the first time you kissed me, behind the fountain, at Parc de la Chute. You tasted like the orange you'd been eating. You told me you loved me in Catalan first, Diana said, her voice breaking. I didn't understand the words, but I understood everything. They fell quiet. 50 years of silence, sitting heavy between them. I'm 72, Diana finally said. I have arthritis. I take medication for high blood pressure. My hair is completely white. I'm not the girl you knew. I'm 68, Elena countered. I have scars from 2 C-sections. My knees hurt when it rains. I wear reading glasses. I'm not her either. Do you want to be? Diana asked. Do you want to find out who we are now? Elena looked out her window at the San Diego sunrise, pink and gold over the Pacific. She thought about playing it safe, protecting her heart, being reasonable. She thought about her daughters who would worry, her friends who wouldn't understand, the comfortable loneliness she'd built her life around. Then she thought about being 18, Diana's lips on hers, believing love could conquer anything. They'd been wrong, then too young, too naive, born in the wrong time. But they weren't those girls anymore. They were women who'd survived everything life threw at them. Women who'd lived full lives and earned their scars. Yes, she said, God help me, yes. They decided on neutral ground, Mexico City, halfway between them, a city neither had history in. Elena flew in from San Diego, Diana from Portland. They'd each booked rooms at the same hotel but hadn't told each other the room numbers. They needed escape routes, ways to retreat if the reality didn't match the dream. Elena stood in the hotel lobby, wearing a blue dress she'd bought specifically for this moment, her white hair styled at a salon that morning, hands gripping her purse to stop them shaking. She was 10 minutes early. Diana had texted she was running late, traffic from the airport. When Diana walked through those doors, Elena's breath caught. She was tall. Elena had forgotten how tall, or maybe she'd just been shorter at 18. Diana's hair was pure white, cut in a stylish bob, and she wore linen pants with a flowing tunic top in earth tones. But it was her face that made Elena's eyes fillaged beautifully, laugh lines deep around her mouth and eyes, those amber-ringed brown eyes searching the lobby until they landed on Elena. They stood frozen, 20 feet apart, the lobby bustling around them. Then Diana's face crumpled and she started crying, and Elena was moving, and suddenly they were holding each other, both crying, both shaking, half a century collapsing into this one moment. You're real, Diana whispered into Elena's hair. I was so afraid you wouldn't be real. They sat in the hotel cafe for 3 hours, just looking at each other, holding hands across the table, occasionally crying, occasionally laughing at nothing, except the impossibility of this moment. You're more beautiful now, Diana said, fingers tracing Elena's palm. I know that sounds like a line, but it's true. There's something in your face, strength, maybe, survival. You look like you, Elena said simply. Older, yes, but I would have known you anywhere. That first day they took it slow, walked through Chapultepec Park like they'd once walked through Barcelona's Gothic quarter, ate dinner at a small restaurant where the waiter smiled knowingly at them, talked about their lives, the real details, not the summaries they'd covered on the phone. Diana's paintings, Elena's nursing stories, the children they'd raised, the spouses they'd lost or left at midnight. They stood outside Elena's hotel room door. I should let you rest, Diana said, not letting go of Elena's hand. We have time now. We don't have to rush. But Elena pulled her closer. We've waited 50 years. I don't want to wait another night. They spent 2 weeks in Mexico City, learning each other again, discovering who they'd become. Diana was organized, punctual, a morning person who did yoga and drank green tea. Elena was spontaneous, often late, came alive at night, and survived on strong coffee. They argued about small things, which restaurant to try, whether to take a taxi or walk, how cold to keep the air conditioning, and it was glorious. Because they were arguing, because they got to have these small domestic disputes. because they were together. On day 15, sitting on Diana's hotel room balcony watching the sunset, Alina said, I want to go back to San Diego, to Barcelona. Diana's hand tightened on her wine glass. Are you sure? We left something there, Alina said. Both of us, we've been carrying it for 50 years. Maybe it's time to lay it down. They flew to Barcelona in early October. The city had changed, modernized, democratized, become the tourist destination Diana had always known it would be, but the bones were the same. The gaudy buildings still twisted toward the sky. The Gothic quarters still held shadows and secrets. The Mediterranean still sparkled. They stayed in a boutique hotel in Elborn, and on their second morning, Alina led Diana through streets she hadn't walked in 50 years. Some she remembered. Some had changed beyond recognition. But she found at the small plaza where they'd first kissed. It was now a busy intersection. The fountain gone, replaced by a modern sculpture. But the building on the corner still stood, the same cafe on the ground floor, though it was now a trendy brunch spot instead of the old working-class cafe it had been. Here, Alina said, stopping at what had once been a quiet corner. Right here is where you told me you were falling in love with me. You said it in English because you didn't know the Spanish words. You said, Alina, I think I'm falling. And I said, me too, because my English was terrible but I understood perfectly. Diana pulled her close, right there on the busy street, and kissed her. A real kiss, deep and sure, 50 years in the making. Tourists walked around them. Locals smiled. Nobody called the police. When they pulled apart, both were crying again. We won, Alina whispered. We didn't get the life we wanted then, but we survived. We made it to the other side. We won. They visited every place from their memories. Casa Batlló, where Alina had worn a yellow dress. Partgel, where they'd been caught. La Sagrada Familia, where Diana had whispered promises. The hotel where they'd met, now renovated beyond recognition. Each location was a ghost, laid to rest, a what-if put to bed. On their last night, they stood on a beach outside the city, the Mediterranean wind in their hair. I'm moving to Portland, Alina said. Diana turned to her. What? My daughters are grown. I'm retired. San Diego has nothing for me except memories of a life that never quite fit. You have your house, your studio, your life there. I'm coming to you. Alina, you don't have to. I want to. Alina took both Diana's hands. I want to wake up next to you. I want to argue about the thermostat and whose turn it is to cook. I want boring, domestic, everyday love. We got robbed of that once. I'm not letting it happen again. Diana kissed her as the sun set over the sea. Welcome home, she whispered. Alina moved to Portland in December. Diana's house was a small craftsman bungalow in southeast Portland, with a studio in the converted garage and a garden that had gone wild without Grace's careful tending. It had 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and 50 years of Diana's solitary life filling every corner. The first month was harder than either expected. Diana was used to her routines, her space, her way of doing things. Alina was used to her independence, her own rhythms. They collided constantly over how to load the dishwasher, where to store the towels, whether the bedroom should be cold or warm at night. Maybe this was a mistake, Alina said one January evening after a particularly sharp argument about whether to paint the kitchen yellow or blue. Maybe we romanticized the past. Maybe we're too old to change. Diana looked at her across the kitchen. Their kitchen, though it didn't feel like theirs yet, felt like Diana's space that Alina was invading in. Her face was stricken. Do you want to leave? Alina thought about it, really thought about it, thought about how easy it would be to call her daughters, move back to San Diego, chalk this up to a beautiful dream that reality couldn't sustain. But then she looked at Diana Reali, looked at her, at the woman who'd searched for her for decades, who'd kept paintings of a girl in a yellow dress, who'd waited 50 years. No, she said softly, I want to fight about paint colors with you. I want to figure out whose fault it is that we're out of coffee. I want to learn how you like your eggs and why you alphabetize your books. I want all of it, Diana. Even the hard parts, especially the hard parts. They painted the kitchen green, a compromise neither had suggested. They established routines that belonged to both of them. Alina took over the garden, bringing it back to life with vegetables and herbs. Diana taught her to paint, setting up an easel next to hers in the studio. They found a rhythm. Elena's daughters visited in March. Jennifer was cautious but kind. Maria was openly skeptical. They'd known their mother was divorced, had even encouraged it, but they hadn't expected this. You're living with a woman, Maria said over dinner, her tone careful. I'm living with the person I love, Alina corrected gently, who happens to be a woman, who I first loved 50 years ago. Why didn't you ever tell us? Jennifer asked. Alina looked at Diana, who squeezed her hand under the table. Because I didn't know how to tell you something I couldn't admit to myself. I grew up in Franco's Spain. I married at 18 to avoid prison. I spent 40 years being who I had to be, but I'm not that person anymore. I'm finally who I was always meant to be. It wasn't immediate acceptance. Maria struggled with it, worried what her friends would think, what she would tell her own children. But Jennifer hugged Alina tight before leaving, and whispered, "You look happy, Mom, really happy. I never saw that before." They didn't plan to marry. Neither felt the need for paper or ceremony to validate what they had. But in May, sitting in their garden, among Elena's tomatoes and Diana's easel, Diana said, "I want everyone to know you're mine." Is that selfish? I want to choose you, Elena replied. Legally, officially. I want to stand in front of people and choose you, the way I should have been allowed to 50 years ago. They planned a simple ceremony for August in their garden, Elena's daughters and their families, Diana's brother from Chicago, and his wife, a handful of close friends, the art history professor who'd been Diana's mentor, the nurse who'd worked with Elena for 20 years and had flown up from San Diego. Elena wore cream linen, practical, elegant. Diana wore a flowing dress in sage green. They'd written their own vows. When it was Elena's turn, she took Diana's hands and said in Spanish first, then English, "I loved you when we were too young to understand what love cost. I loved you through 50 years of absence and silence. I loved you through other lives, other loves, other selves, and I love you now, at the end of all our separate journeys, having found our way back to where we started. You are my home. You always were." Diana's vows were simpler. "I looked for you everywhere. In every city I visited, every woman I met, every painting I made, I looked for you until I found you. And now that I have you, I'm never letting go. Not for anything. Not this time," Maria cried. Jennifer took pictures. Diana's brother stood up and said, 40 years I've known my sister. She was happy with Grace. She was content. But this," he gestured at Diana and Elena, "this is what joy looks like." They danced in the garden as the August sun set, Portland's summer warmth wrapping around them. Elena's grandson, 10 years old, asked her, "Abuela, why are you crying if you're happy?" "Because sometimes," she told him, "the best things in life are worth crying over." That night, lying in bed in their house, wedding bands on their fingers, Diana said, "Do you ever regret it? The time we lost?" Elena considered the question seriously. Did she regret Miguel? He'd been cruel, but he'd given her survival. Did she regret Paul? He'd been kind, and given her daughters she loved fiercely. Did she regret the 50 years of being someone else? "I regret that we had to lose time," she said finally. "I regret living in a world that made us choose between love and safety. But I don't regret who I became while we were apart, because that woman, the one who survived everything, she's strong enough to keep you this time. The 18-year-old girl couldn't have done that." Diana kissed her forehead. "We're going to grow old together." "We are, old together." Elena laughed. "Older then, ancient, decrepit, until neither of us can remember our own names, but we still know each other. Promise, promise." 3 years later, they still wake in that craftsman bungalow in Portland. Elena's garden flourishes. Diana's studio is filled with paintings, new ones now, not ghosts from the past. They've traveled to Barcelona twice more, each time laying down more memories, building new ones on top of the old. They argue about the thermostat. They take turns cooking. They've learned each other's rhythms, the way Diana gets quiet when she's painting, how Elena needs her morning coffee before conversation. They've built a life that, it's not the life they planned at 18 and 22. It's better, because it's real, because they earned it, because they survived everything the world threw at them and found each other anyway. On their garden gate, they've hung a small painted sign Diana made. "Home is where we finally arrived." Have you ever reconnected with someone from your past and discovered the connection was still there? Have you had to wait years or decades to live authentically? Your story matters. Share it in the comments. And if this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to know. It's never too late for real love, for honest life, for coming home to yourself. Sometimes the greatest love stories are the ones that take a lifetime to unfold.